For the first 4 to 5 years of podcasting, we were very serious about editing, transition music and me introducing the guest and sound effects, all that. It was definitely more expensive, more time consuming. I think this is kind of the norm, right? Like for me to go back to those episodes, like, wow, we put in a lot of work. Now, that's certainly one way to go about that, which is, either if you're an editor or you're hiring someone to give them basically a structure. There's a pretty clear standard structure these days, to be honest, right? Like intro, there could be intro, hey, welcome to the Feisworld. This is Faye from Feisworld Media, and our show is about da-da-da. And then on today's show, I have the pleasure of talking to Adam, and today we're going to cover this. And boom, interview, closing. At one point, we also have things like call to action and ads too, right? Like today's episode is sponsored by, so that's a fully edited episode. Now, if you check out, so after that's done, full MP3, I then upload it to Libsyn or Anchor, right? That process pretty straightforward. Upload, title, description. Nowadays, I'm admitting this because I've been doing this for 2 years. I was like, what would happen if I just run the test? Like I don't add an intro. I just go right into the content. Instead, like I don't want to go in and be like, start blabbing, but I would consciously plan out my live stream, like the one I'll have for tomorrow. I'll say, hey, everyone, right? Like this is a live session. For those of you who are watching this afterward, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And then I will introduce the guests. I will do everything I know I want the listeners to experience at the beginning. Frankly, I didn't do that for a little while. And then I have to like insert the intro later. I was like, oh, this is so much work. Why didn't I just like plan the structure? I have these sticky notes I have on my computer. I do live stream all the time. It just reminds me of the structure. So that's what I do. And literally after I've gone live, I can download right from Restream, go into that recording folder. I just download the MP4. Now that's a piece of video. I will only upload that video. I only need to upload that video to Anchor, where I host my audio content. Not to make it more complicated, because Anchor is part of Spotify, and Spotify has enabled video podcasting since last year. Now I'm able to upload video content, and that will broadcast in video format on Spotify, but still audio only on the remaining platforms, namely Google, Apple. Yeah, mostly. I mean, some of the other like audio only podcast, it just knows how to channel video only or just video or video and audio.
Scheduling, I want to say two things. One is that scheduling is part of the work, but sometimes you don't control it. So when we spent a year working with Enabled Disabled podcast, helping them get up and running around people with disability. And when you have to schedule an appointment, somebody might cancel at the last minute, this or that. So that's a lot of effort. We still do it. But to have like a hot take or a monologue or a rant gives you the ability to keep going. And then you can even do things like the more professional, meaning effective, not fancy or expensive. People that we know will sit down and just record for, let's say, an hour, but that's 5 12-minute pieces, or do the math, as many pieces as you want. So then they have content going out into the future. So that can be a lot better. And as far as the sort of live stream versus overproduced, the live stream has been such a joy. I literally personally used to spend at least 40 minutes thinking up a title on the first, like, God knows, 50, 100 episodes. And they would spend about 20 hours a week. And so if we had a choice, I won't speak for Faye, but my feeling is, and she'll say hers, that if you had a choice between 4 episodes at that level of production or 4 times as many, still in good faith, the second one is better for business. So it's still high quality. It's what Seth Godin calls, merely ship instead of just ship. So there's still quality. We still really care. But the clients, without naming any names, that have the biggest struggles are the ones that kind of overdo it, that like polish and perfect and like drop one thing a month or whatever. And to finish, one gentleman that I just met on an online forum was asking me some questions. I ended up doing some strategy for him. The biggest switch, he told me he was spending $100 per episode and doing 4 a month. I was like, keep your money, do it yourself, start with phase-free content, I'll give my 2 cents. He's now multiplied the amount of content that he's putting out in his business, which is expert consulting business, is going much, much better. So we're still uptight about it. We still want it to be really good, but you need, and Faye can speak to the number, but you kind of need a certain level before YouTube will notice you. So it's not that big, but it's not 5 or 10. I think it's more like 50.
Mm-hmm. Not all content is created equal. You might be surprised by one conversation to say, how did that take off? Or one that you feel like, oh, this person's really well known, even really knowing the industry. How come I didn't really gain a lot of traction? So it is a bit of a numbers game. I know that in our world we learned like, for a long time, it like quality over quantity. But these days, you really got to balance that. Oftentimes, we see people spending way too much time, too much money, creating too few episodes or work creations in general. Adam brought up another thing I really want to kind of hone in on, which is called batch production. Batch your work is huge. Meaning if you want to batch kind of scripting, ideating, batch recording process, batch production editing, batch upload them if you can. When you batch your effort, carve out half a day to really focus on that is so much better and such a time saver than to say, oh, 20 minutes here, I'll remember that. And it becomes very disjointed. And I find that, I'm still learning and really training myself when I work with this young woman who's running like the 7-figure business. And I can totally name her as well. I'm actually interviewing her tomorrow. So Biddy Tarot. So she's very much a businesswoman. She's using like tarot card to actually activate from a creative sense, like how to live a better life and all that. She started the business when she was 16, and she's like me now, like close to 40. And so after we ideated YouTube strategy, 12 ideas, she was so focused. She literally said, that's great, because next week I got 2 days carved out. I saw her calendar, half days, just 10 to 2 p.m. She's like, all done. Like literally next week comes around, she's recorded all that content. She's like, I have to do this. She now has a quarter or 3 months of content ready to be released. That is a beautiful place to get to. And don't be frustrated if you don't get there right away. But if you start training yourself to think about these things, all the things that we made mistakes on, to do like one episode, half an episode at a time, and like trying to make it perfect. If you think of it in batches, like you'll be so much better off. I run a creative entrepreneurs group, and most people in our group are like, yeah, we have to tell the guests that we don't have any slots open. Like we are completely packed. We have enough content for the next 6 months, and that's a beautiful place to be in. I remember your background in media, so that's a great question. Now, there are many different ways to actually do that. It's not really for the nature of our show. However, I love live engagement interaction. What people are familiar and very comfortable with these days is that as I'm going live on Restream, as I mentioned, like there's a previous screenshot, all the comments are coming in from social media. Whenever I see a question, I have the ability to project that question live at the bottom of the screen. And for me as a host, I'll go, oh, thank you, Adam, for this great question. So I will even repeat that question and have my guest answer that. If you want someone to come in with full audio, this way, at least within Restream, what's possible is you will have to send that link. So that person is literally joining you in the studio. And that person can then ask a question with live audio. You can even bring their video on if you choose to, or have them ask a question in backstage. I will say something. I think Adam want to jump in with some of his experiences as well. Literally in the past couple of years, I've been interviewed by a lot of authors who want to write about specific things. The most recent one I can think of is related to, I think, Asian immigrants and female immigrants living in the U.S. So I think it's a great idea to invite people to really, in a way, contribute to the work you're doing. And you'll be surprised that people often will really want to say yes to that. They feel valued. Maybe they will be quoted, things like that. And now your podcast has multiple purposes, which I find really exciting, right? It's not just about sharing your voice with this thing that you're considering doing, but actually it's fueling other creative endeavors in a very necessary way. And can you imagine the people who are being interviewed by you and those listeners will be more likely to want to follow your journey and even buy your book in the end?
Yeah, so I think first of all, I do sincerely love the idea. And among the reasons is because it's heartfelt and it's universal. So as we've been doing our thing, talk to people from every age, literally every financial level, from like working with homeless people to, multi-seven figure, everybody has the same experiences. So it's instantly relatable and it's important. As far as what to focus on, Faye and I have sort of had this, I shouldn't say argument, but like debate, like niche versus big. You can niche down later. I think the word value I use a lot. People use it for different things. It's whatever's most important to you. It's whatever's most important to the listener. So when we're looking at two things, the thing that we focus on is what's a bigger deal to us? What's a bigger deal to who we want to connect with? And that's always been good enough. And then later we go back and put it into categories. So, we got off on the circus thing and had all these circus episodes. So we put that into a separate podcast. And then it was about digital marketing. And then it was about creative entrepreneurship. And now it's focusing on YouTube strategy. So what I wouldn't do is have a niche and then go look for things in it, because then it could be empty, right? Sort of like, what's the point? So I think as long as it's important, as long as it's heartfelt, people are going to be interested. And what was originally the idea of the web was, if you were doing some even odd thing, there's somebody out there who that's exactly really what they want to hear. So that's what I tell my friends that are starting, is like, it's actually not difficult. You just have to be in front of those people. Like the content that you're creating in this moment right now, there's probably hundreds of thousands of millions of people who want to hear that. So that's really all these platforms are a way to get in front of people. And lastly, to put kind of a businessy metaphor on it, the thing I borrowed from Dean Graziano, he said that there's basically three ways to do business. You can be a subject matter expert, a connector, or a reporter. So subject matter expert sounds fun. It's like, I went to med school and I have this big degree. That's cool, but it can take 10 or 20 years. So if you're doing a new thing, that may not be the best way. Connector, I find, is great, introducing people to each other, connecting people with important ideas. But I find that's better done socially and for fun rather than as a business. It's just kind of more authentic that way. But the reporter has allowed us to just bring these people that we've mentioned and other people that we haven't to people's attention. So lastly, what our strategy that I brought to Feisworld at the beginning was, we went one famous person, one not famous person. So we're like, oh, we're going to have, such and such, Dory Clark, and she's really famous. And then we're going to take my friend, Mariana Glusman, who's a pediatrician who wrote a book on reading to your kid, and nobody's heard of her. So we went back and forth, and took the opportunity of the well-known people to bring attention to the other people. So that's kind of how we went at it.
Thank you. And I think I really want to talk about the idea of niche, because for years, you can see just all over Google, YouTube, everybody's like, know your niche. You need to know exactly who you talk to. You need to create expert content around one niche, no other. I mean, I can personally watch hundreds of videos. And now in 2023, you'll notice there's a complete pivot to now all these people who are successful to say, well, it's important for you to explore different venues, different avenues, for you to explore who you are as a person. You don't want to niche down so much that you can't really back out anymore, that you find yourself in this tiny little area that you're no longer interested in. So the punchline is this, that if you're working on something that you are interested in, that you love, there's going to be a life for that. If you work on something just, either just to make money or following a popular niche, but you actually don't have a lot of personal interest, or you don't feel invested in that, then it's not going to work. The reason why I really like the word trying and the podcast is because I feel like that type of content is frankly missing, isn't it? Right? Because you only see the mega success, the 18 steps to, I love these things, to launch your multi-7-figure first digital course ever. They're not going to put guarantee at the end. Everybody's a life coach, everybody's successful, but the trying is about that journey as opposed to destination. I think we're all trying. A few hours ago, I was speaking to, not naming her, like literally one of the most important successful meditation teacher. And she has many self-doubts. She's not so sure if she's teaching enough, she knows enough. And it really shocked me. She's trying too, as it turned out. So thank you for the great question and for sharing your podcast.
On that note too, I want to share that there's, in one sense, we're saying this is important. This is, we want to hear this. This is a big deal. And it is, but without being unkind, the opposite is also true. Nobody cares if you change. So like if you're Coke and then you make new Coke and everyone freaks out, right? So some people learn business from this big brand, Procter & Gamble, whatever, but unconsciously don't realize when you're small, like, yes, if, we started our podcast, so, Faye talked about it publicly, she could record conversations with her father who was terminally ill. And we've helped other people have this same motivation. But at the same token, if you do the trying thing and it's extraordinary and you find something else that's even more extraordinary to you, nobody's going to mind. So there's also, again, that power in just starting out. You can be dead life and death serious about what you're doing. And at the same point, you switch and nobody really gets mad because nobody's really heard of you yet. So it's okay.
It's great. It's so much freedom and not being famous. It really is very liberating.
To answer at the strategic level, how it does it, NLP finds the keywords, and then we look over to make sure it's correct. So we clean it up, which is part of what we're proud of, is that it never gets it all. So we kind of spackle and plaster over the differences to bring it to a high level of quality.
Yeah. So I know that you are sitting in a certain, I guess, setup. I'm not sure how well you can see the screen. So I'm just going to kind of verbalize what's what, and then Adam can answer more specific questions. So what you're seeing now, this is just web-based. And when we work with our clients, they get a link, they get a username and password, they log in. And within this, database, all these clips. Okay, so it's gonna make me log into Feisworld. Let's see how well that goes. Because Feisworld has way too many clips and 15,000. But basically what we're doing here is we're showing, the number of episodes and then the keywords. So Adam, I think this one, for instance, I think, okay, so under keywords, there are a lot of things that we will mention, even within 3 to 5 episodes. You might not even realize this, but artificial intelligence is going to pick up keywords that are relevant or think it's relevant. And so what we do is, this is the part where we, work with our clients to understand, and then we actually become almost like a listener and watchers to help them see what's really interesting. So if I were to, like, for instance, just what is accusation audit? And by the way, this is kind of plowing through, 15,000 or so clips. And there I have it. I mean, literally, we have this is like 8 years of demo content in there. I was going to show you guys a much smaller example, but could be more interesting. Now you can see it picked out my live stream based on the keyword accusation audit and who the speaker is. And here, you can see the transcript with that as well. And so to me, by the way, like, this is the level of content that I've been trying to get to, because otherwise, previously, there's just no way. Like, I have to literally try to remember the episode, and then I'll just give up looking at 30 minutes, 1 hour worth of content, But now, if somebody wants to learn specifically about accusation audit, somebody wants to learn how to make their first $1,000, how to be a successful podcaster, or I'm sure after today's recording, there are going to be tips around how to launch your podcast on YouTube. Now I can go to those clips immediately. Now I'm going to just say one more thing. As I'm interviewing more people around the same domain, like other YouTube strategists, other podcasters, now I can create compilations of their answers. It would be really interesting, by the way, people agree, disagree with each other. They tried out different things. So now you can look at all the specific content all together on one page. Now, there are different filters, as you can see here. We have episode filter. We have, I don't have to, it's going to load like crazy, given the number of clips.
Like let it catch up. It'll do what you want it to do.
Okay, so we have keywords, we have speakers, we have media, so you can filter on audio, video, or both, and publishing date, and even duration of that as well, right? Like I wanted under 45 seconds and 1 to 2 minutes. So I don't want to get into the too much nitty gritty. If you have any, some interest, again, my email is hello@feisworld.com, feisworld.com. But Adam, feel free to jump in and, maybe clarify any questions here.
So quickly, what's the point, right? There's two things that PodIntelligence helps you do. One is helps you look at your content and look at themes. So you can just click on keywords and say, what have I talked about? So that you want to write a blog post, you say, let me pick out something, or let me find what they call a through line through my writing. The second thing is to create micro content. So you've done this YouTube because it's kind of the top of the food chain. You want a 1-minute clip that you can post to Instagram or TikTok or LinkedIn. So these clips are already made for you. That's the most important thing. You literally don't have to do anything except send over the episodes. So for each episode, maybe there'd be 20 or 25 keywords that we have an AI backend service that we license that finds them. And then for each clip, for each keyword, there's maybe 3 or 4 clips. And the text is there, everything's there. You can just preview it, 1 click to download, upload it right onto your platform. So it's either to help you look through, and rather than, in 30 episodes thinking, what did I listen to? Click once, those are the keywords. So those are the important concepts. And then you can go from keywords to clips that can be published as audiograms, the little oscilloscope thing runs, quote cards, videograms. And the purpose of that to finish is to find new people, is for customer acquisition. So whereas long form content, a half an hour interview that you would do brings people closer, they really appreciate you, they want to learn more from you, but you got to find the people somewhere. So the short form content, the micro content spreads out into the world, so the people that might not have discovered you can kind of fall into your net and then kind of fall in love with the longer form that they listen to more.
That is a good point that I don't think I had a chance to really get in there, is that as a podcaster, as a content creator, especially we are long form content creators. If you do interviews, you're long form content creators. And we want people to fall in love and choose our episodes, choose our podcast. But the problem is, if you look at the drop-off rate, is that people tend to, these days people's average attention is like 3, 5, 7 seconds. If sometimes we insert a commercial, sometimes you introduce the show, people are gone and they have to be really committed. And I notice, like, when it comes to listenership, a lot of people listen to the first, of course, 5, 10, 15 minutes. And I go, but the better content is actually the second half. Oh, in this case, David G is so brilliant, talked about ancient teaching. And I really wish they can get to that clip. Well, it's not really the listener's responsibility to get to the part that you want them to get to. So now you have other platforms such as YouTube and social media to tease that out. And that is really the power of social media, not for the sake of creating a social media account. It's more like, how could you tease out your content so people might want to consume the full episode? It's almost like the trailer, right? Like many of us still, I don't know if you watch Netflix or Hulu. Oftentimes I'm someone who like to watch the trailer to see if this may be something I might like. And now you'll notice on even these major platforms, there's more than one trailer. For years it was just one thing, like it or not. Now there are multiple trailers you can find on YouTube. That's the reason people want to find different angles to approach and to attract their audience. So
Yeah.
absolutely happy to demo. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, Faye. So, and also as a new person, if your guests aren't famous, how are you going to attract the viewers, right? Again, I used to write titles. Kind of nobody cares about titles, so you try to write something clever, and people don't read it. They're just scrolling through. But so many people on their phones, so many people looking at video. So that person, your guest or yourself speaking, could be instantly captivating. There's an old saying, you can't taste the watermelon by licking the skin. So this kind of like, it's like more of that person who hands out the samples at the mall, right? Not just looking at a cold menu. So if you're getting started out, if you don't know how to, like, there's 2 million, maybe 4 million podcasts, how are they going to look at my stuff? You get the micro content out there, you get those little video clips out there, and the people who want to hear about the history of this radio niche, this radio community, people that want to hear about your conversations, people that want to hear about trying. Lastly, it's instant. So I feel like, when I have single friends, you try to introduce them to somebody. I don't really think you need the candle light and the bottles of wine and stuff. You put the two people in the same room, they know if they like each other. So I think the same is true with the micro content. It puts your best stuff or your good stuff out there. And you need, even if you have a few hour-long things, that could be, you'll generally pick 3 or 4 out of each. So you can kind of spread it out there. And people will agree, whether it's YouTube or podcasting or blogs, nobody knows what's going to be popular. Nobody knows what's going to move people. And all the biggest famous, much more famous than those people, will tell you that, which is why you got to put so much stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
Feisworld has had maybe 4 major like boosts of energy that have sent it along. We would have no idea what they would be. And the certain posts that made that viral isn't quite the word, but that made that really kind of catch fire, nobody knows. So that's the reason to just kind of merely ship, just keep it out there. And whether you use our stuff or not, our tools or not, either way, just get those things out there in front of people so they can say, yeah, that's me. That's what I want to know more about.
So glad that we hope this is helpful to you. The final thing I'll say about micro content is, like, how come you didn't do this before? As in, I didn't do this before. It was just a lot of work. If you're into video editing, audio editing, for you to, upload everything and slice it, listen to it, slice it out and export it, frankly, it's a lot of work. And whereas, when it comes to artificial intelligence, using building tools like this would just automate things, because AI understand more or less when a sentence begins, when it ends. It's not 100% accurate. Ours is really pretty good. And worst case scenario, you can always like trim it a little bit as opposed to starting from zero. That's really the reason. But I know that we are aiming to, basically wrap up within, it's like a 90-minute or so session. Are there any last minute final questions that you guys may have? And you can contact us via email at any time as well.